I never imagined that a holiday lunch, something that should have been filled with laughter, warmth, and family bonding, could become one of the most unforgettable and devastating moments of my life. I had walked into that room with hope, a genuine smile, and the mindset that maybe this year, things would feel different. Maybe this year, I could finally feel seen and appreciated by my family. But as soon as I sat down, I realized how painfully wrong I was. My mom's gaze landed on me, sharp and piercing, colder than I had ever seen it before. And then, in front of everyone, she said words that felt like a knife slicing straight through my chest. Maybe it's time you left and stopped relying on the family. I froze, my mind racing, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. Every instinct screamed at me to fight back, to defend myself, to demand an explanation. But the weight of her words, the intensity of her judgment, left me paralyzed. I could feel my younger sister looking at me, confused, my brother shrugging with indifference, my dad staring blankly at his plate as if he weren't sure how to react either. And in that instant, I felt smaller than I had ever felt in my life. Was I wrong for feeling hurt, betrayed, and utterly blindsided all at once? Tell me honestly, what would you have done if your own mother told you, in front of the people you love, that you were too dependent on the family and needed to leave? Would you have stayed and argued, or quietly left, trying to hold on to what little dignity remained? To truly understand why her words cut so deeply, you need to understand my life before that day, the foundation of who I was, and the family dynamics that shaped me. My family, from the outside, looked like a perfect suburban dream. We had a home that smelled like home, cooked meals and faint traces of pine during the holidays, parents who had steady jobs and provided for their kids, and siblings who, despite their quirks, seemed to be thriving in their own ways. My mom, in particular, was a force to be reckoned with, beautiful, poised, sharp-tongued but brilliant, a woman whose standards seemed impossible to meet but whose approval felt like the ultimate reward. I had always tried to meet her expectations, to be the kind of child she could be proud of. Some days I succeeded, others I faltered, but I assumed that, in the end, love was unconditional. I thought that, no matter my mistakes or shortcomings, she would stand beside me, guide me, and support me. But that day at the holiday lunch, I learned that even the people who should love you unconditionally can hurt you in ways that feel permanent. The morning of the lunch began with a quiet, almost innocent routine. I helped my younger sister with holiday decorations, arranging the tree and placing ornaments with the careful precision of someone desperate to contribute to a joyful environment. I set the table with the finest plates, the ones that had only been brought out on rare, special occasions, hoping to impress my mom and make her proud. I even offered to carve the turkey, a task I hadn't attempted in years, believing it would earn me a nod of appreciation. My dad was in his usual spot in the living room, pretending to read the newspaper but stealing glances at his phone, as if he were waiting for something to distract him from the tension in the room. My older brother was glued to the TV with headphones in, half, listening to the conversations around him, completely disengaged from the family interaction. And my mom, moving gracefully yet with an unmistakable authority, directed everyone like a conductor with an orchestra. Everything seemed normal. I thought I had prepared for every possible scenario, but nothing could have prepared me for what was about to happen. Lunch began with the usual polite chatter, laughter that was slightly forced but still acceptable, and the aroma of roasted turkey, cinnamon, and fresh bread filling the room. Conversation shifted from trivial holiday plans to deeper, more personal matters, and then, without warning, the spotlight turned to me. My mom's tone, previously light and teasing, took on a sharp edge. She began enumerating every failure she believed I had committed in the past year, the times she thought I mismanaged my finances, the moments she felt I relied too heavily on her support instead of carving my own path, the achievements she expected me to have accomplished but hadn't. Each word struck like a hammer, puncturing my confidence, leaving me reeling in humiliation and confusion. And then she delivered the line that I will never forget. Maybe it's time you left and stopped relying on the family." At first, I couldn't believe it. Surely this had to be a joke, some cruel attempt to lighten the mood, but the steely look in her eyes told me otherwise. This wasn't casual criticism. It was a verdict, a declaration that, in her eyes, I was a burden, someone unworthy of remaining in the family fold without changing. I wanted to shout, to argue, to defend myself, to list all the ways I had silently supported the family. But something inside me clicked. Maybe it was shock, maybe it was embarrassment, or maybe it was the sudden realization that arguing in front of everyone would make me appear weaker, not stronger. I quietly set down my fork, excused myself, and retreated to my room. Alone, I let the words echo in my mind, the sting of betrayal cutting deeper than I thought possible. And then I made a decision that would change everything. I would leave quietly, without confrontation, without tears, without giving them the satisfaction of seeing me break. I packed a small bag, just enough to hold my essentials, my laptop, a few clothes, and my journal. I didn't make a sound. I didn't say goodbye. I walked out the door with nothing but my dignity and a strange, budding sense of liberation. The streets were cold, the night sky dark and still, the kind of quiet that amplifies your thoughts until they echo like a chorus in your head. With every step toward my car, I felt the weight of what had just happened, but also a spark of clarity. Her words, meant to diminish me, had inadvertently fueled a fire within. I realized that if I let this moment define me, I would crumble. But if I used it as a catalyst, I could redefine myself entirely. I drove aimlessly, letting the city lights blur past my vision until I found a small motel on the outskirts of town. That night, I cried not only for the betrayal I felt, but for the understanding that the people who were supposed to be my safe space weren't capable of providing it. And yet, within that grief, I also felt a flicker of empowerment. I had chosen my path, taken my first steps into true independence, and for the first time in years, I felt a sense of control over my own life. The weeks that followed were grueling yet transformative. I found work at a local cafe, a job that left my body aching at the end of the day, but my spirit stronger than ever. I networked, applied to opportunities I had once dismissed, and slowly began building a life that was entirely my own. Every paycheck I earned felt like a small victory, a tangible proof that I was capable of supporting myself. Nights in my modest apartment were spent reflecting, journaling, and planning a future that didn't depend on anyone's approval. And while the pain of family estrangement lingered, I learned to channel it into resilience and determination. I was no longer just surviving. I was thriving on my own terms. So that's where I was months later when the question of family resurfaced. Every holiday and milestone felt bittersweet without their presence, yet I knew I couldn't return as the same dependent person they had criticized. I had to confront them, not with anger or tears, but with clarity and confidence. When I finally invited my mom for coffee, just the two of us, I laid everything out. I told her how her words had wounded me, how they had forced me to confront my fears and grow in ways I never expected. I spoke calmly with steady conviction, explaining that while I had once relied on the family, I had now proven to myself that I could exist, succeed, and thrive independently. At first, she tried to justify herself, claiming her harshness came from love and a desire to make me stronger. But something had changed. Perhaps it was the confidence in my eyes, the strength in my voice, or the undeniable fact that I no longer needed her approval. She paused, swallowed, and admitted she had been wrong. The aftermath of that conversation wasn't immediate, but it was profound. My mom began acknowledging my independence, my dad started offering genuine support, and even my siblings adjusted their perception of me. It took time, patience, and consistent boundaries, but slowly, the cracks in our family dynamic began to heal. I realized the most important lesson of all: family doesn't define your worth. You define your worth through your choices, your resilience, and your ability to rise above moments of betrayal and hurt. Looking back, I see that holiday lunch not as a moment of failure, but as a turning point. It was the spark that ignited my journey toward self-discovery, independence, and inner strength. I know now that pain can be transformative, and that sometimes the people who hurt us the most unintentionally push us toward the life we were meant to live. So, if you've ever felt underestimated, dismissed, or unloved by the people closest to you, know that you have the power to define your path. Like this video if you were on my side, subscribe for more stories like this, and share your thoughts in the comments. I want to hear about your experiences, your struggles, and how you found your strength. I'll see you all in the next story.